to all! Today's daf is Rosh Daf Yadalad. We are starting 11 lines from the top, the third to last word on the line. And today's daf is sponsored Lili Nishmas, Mars Miriam Sarah Basar Yaakov Maisha, her Neshama should have an Aliyah, and Lili Nishmas, Mars Rivka Basar Meir Zev, her Neshama should have an Aliyah. Now yesterday we learned that the year of Meiser of all fruit, except for grapes and olives, is determined by Chanata, when the flower falls off the branch and the fruit begins to emerge, which we know from our Mishnah is in Shvat. And now the Gemara says, Tanya, we have a brayso Rabbi Glili Omer. He says, the pasuk tells us, Ba'asbacha migarncha mikvecha, that which you gather from your garden and your yakev. Now, if the word Ba'asbacha was directly addressing the words migarncha mikvecha, then the pasuk should have said Ba'asbacha l'soicha garncha mikvecha, what you gather into your threshing floor. By stating migarncha, the pasuk implies that two things are being spoken of: Ba'asbacha, that which you gather in from somewhere else, and migarncha mikvecha, that which you gather in from your threshing floor and wine vat. And now we have a special drasha from Rabbi Glili. Ma garin v'yakev miuchadim shegdelam al mei shana sha'avra umis asal shana sha'avra. Just like your garin and yakev, they grow on last year's water, and therefore their meiser is based off of this past year. Av kol shegdelam al mei shana sha'avra. So too anything that grows on last year's water, namely fruits, mis asal shana sha'avra, we're going to take off meiser based off of this past year. Yata yirakas, this excludes vegetables. Shegdelam al mei shana haba, they grow on this upcoming year's water, umis asal shana haba, and therefore we're going to take off meiser based off of this upcoming year, meaning based off of lakita when they're actually picked. Meaning even after being cut from their source, let's say cucumbers being cut off the vine, new cucumbers are going to grow from the vine. This is even after the original veggie grew a third of its size. Clearly, quote unquote, the water of last year, meaning the original water that nourished this plant, was not so essential for its growth, for it continued to sprout new cucumbers even after it was cut. Therefore, the meister is determined the year it's picked, basar lakita. Now, Rabbi Kiva Eimer, he has a slightly different drasha. He says, Ba'asbacha migarncha mikvecha, ma garin v'yakev miuchadim. Garin and yakev is unique. Shegdelan al roiv mayim, they grow on roiv mayim. Roiv mayim over here doesn't mean majority of water, it means common water, namely rainwater. They grow just on rainwater and they don't need any more water. Umas asal shana sha'avra, and therefore we give meiser based off of the previous year, meaning the year that it rained. Av kol shegdelan al roiv mayim, umas asal shana sha'avra. So to anything that grows just off of rainwater, so we're going to give meiser based off of that year. But yasa yirakas, that excludes vegetables. Shegdelan al kol mayim, they grow on all water, meaning you also have to irrigate them, you also have to water them on your own. Umas asal shana haba, therefore the meiser is going to be based off of this upcoming year, meaning when you pick them. The Gemara asks, "My beinayu, what's the difference between these two drashas? They seem to be very similar." So Rabbi answers, "B'tzalim hasrisim upul mitzri ika beinayu." The difference is a halacha, which is relevant to b'tzalim hasrisim. These are very small onions and Egyptian beans. And what's this halacha? That none. We have a mishnah. B'tzalim hasrisim upul hamitzri. These very small onions and these Egyptian beans. Shamana mehem mayim shloshim yom b'fnei Rosh Hashanah. He withheld water from them. He ensured that they did not get any water 30 days before Rosh Hashanah. This was in order to harden them. Mes asan l'sha'avar. So the meiser is based off of that previous year, meaning the year before that Rosh Hashanah. And Mutar b'Shvius, their Mutar and Shemitah of that Rosh Hashanah was the beginning of a Shemitah year, so they're not considered like they're part of the Shemitah year. V'im lav, however, if not, if he allowed them to get water within 30 days of Rosh Hashanah, Asurim b'Shvius, they're Asur and Shemitah, Umas Asal Shana Haba, and then we would have to take off Meiser based off of that upcoming year, if that upcoming year wasn't Shemitah. So how is that relevant to our halacha? So this halacha that we just learned is totally under different definitions. Rabbi Glili defines the Chiyuv of Meister based off of this year's water or last year's water, and so he would agree to this halacha, because by withholding water from them, they grew only on last year's water. Whereas Rabbi Kiva's definition is if they need to be watered, or is rainwater sufficient, and one withholding water from them doesn't change their status, so therefore this halacha would not be like Rabbi Kiva. And we had said in the Mishnah, Be'echa b'Shvat Rosh Hashanah l'Ilan, Beis Shammai's opinion was that the first of Shvat is Rosh Hashanah for trees, and Beis Hill said it's the 15th of Shvat. Now the Gemara asks, my time, but why is that? Why specifically Shvat? Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shaya, that he says, Ha'il v'yatzu Rav Gishmei Shana, since the majority of that year's rains have already fallen. In Eretz Yisrael, the rainy season begins mid-Cheshvan and ends Nisan. That means that Tu B'Shvat is already past the halfway point of the rainy season. All the early rains are what cause the fruit to begin to merge Shvat time. However, Vadayin Rev Tekufa Mibachutz, the majority of the Tekufa, which means the winter season, has still yet to come. That's because the winter season begins Teves and stretches into the beginning of Nisan. At Tu B'Shvat, the majority of the winter season has still yet to come, and that's why Shvat is considered the Rosh Hashanah for trees. The Gemara asks, my Ka'amar, what does that mean? If we still have the majority of the winter season yet to come, so why is the Rosh Hashanah Shvat time? We still haven't passed the majority of the winter season. The Gemara says, you're right, Hachikamer, this is what we really mean to say. Afal Pisha Rev Tekufa Mibachutz, even though the majority of the winter season has still yet to come, Ha'il v'yatzu Rev Gishmei Shana, since the majority of the rain has already fallen, and that rain is what nourished these fruits that are going to emerge, so that's why Shvat is considered the Rosh Hashanah for trees. And now we're going to be getting involved in a lengthy discussion about Esregim. Tana Rabbanu, we have a brayso. Ma'aser Rabbi Kiva Shaliket Esreg Be'echer B'Shvat. There's